It's great to see you all tonight, and I commend you for being here. It's really lousy rain in Vancouver tonight, and the warmest one of the week. But still, you could be home with a nice cocoa or nana tea, and you decided to come for some reason to Torah class. So I commend you for that. It's great.
So those who are sitting at home don't get the commandment?
They don't get any more that you are getting. They could get it later on if they watch it or Skype it, or they watch it on YouTube. But you're getting it first time. So tonight, I'd like to cover an interesting topic, which is Yosef. Yosef is a pretty complex personality. And on the one hand, he is someone who is well accepted through his life. And the Torah speaks about it. The Torah actually describes, there's a lot of description about Yosef, which is, usually we don't find it. By the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it does not describe it. Moshe is described a little bit. Vayish Moshe Anav Me'od, he was humble. But when it comes to Yosef, for some reason, the Torah spends a lot of letters, ink, in order to describe who was Yosef. So on the one hand, as we said, he is someone who's well accepted by society. People are pleased with him. The Torah starts by saying that he was Yefeh To'ar v'Yefeh Mar'eh. He was a handsome man. Then the Torah speaks about the fact that he was his father's favorite. Of all the brothers, he is the one who his father loves the most. He is in charge of Potiphar's house, later on we find it. When he is sold and he is down in Mitzrayim, Potiphar sees him after he's in prison, and he sees him and he takes him and he's in charge of all of Potiphar's home. And Potiphar was a minister to Paro. It was a very good position that he was in. Then we find out that he is the chief officer in prison. After the encounter he has with Potiphar's wife, he is put in prison. And then when he is put in prison, he is the chief of the prison. He is the one who takes care of all the prisoners there. And then after that, he becomes the viceroy, the second in command of the king of Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim at that time was a great and powerful nation. It was like the USA today. So he was the second in command, the vice president of this great and powerful nation. On the other hand, we find that Yosef is someone who is negative, and he is not beloved by some. First of all, he gives a negative report to his father regarding his brothers. So they don't like him. They don't get along with him. Then, dreams. He has dreams. And one dream, what does he see? What does he say to his father? There's the sun, the moon, and 11 servants, 11 people, bowing down to me. And his father thinks about it. Who are you talking about? Me and your mother. His mother at that time, Rashi explained, it wasn't obviously Rachel, she passed away, but it was Zilpah who raised him. And your brothers, are we going to come and bow in front of you? What are you talking about? And then when
It's not in his control. That's his dream.
that's his dream, but does he have to reveal it? Keep it for himself. Keep it for himself. Then after that, when the brothers go down to Mitzrayim, he knows, he sees them, he knows who they are, and he hides his identity. Then after that, he reveals himself. But before revealing himself, we see how tough he is with his brothers. He's telling them that they are spies, that they came down to spy the land, and then he tells them to bring Binyamin. And Yaakov is really distraught about it. How are you going to take Binyamin? His brother Yosef is already not here, and you're going to take my other one. What's going on? So he's a tough character. And actually, more than that, I quote two Rashis that say, according to Chazal, to the rabbis, Yosef was someone who was handsome, the Torah says, but he really was speaking, he was selfish in a sense. He was speaking only about himself, about his appearance. How he looks. His appearance.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm speaking.
Yeah.
But where the Torah says that about his using his looking at his appearance like in arrogance.
Oh, so listen to this.
Worshiping.
So there's two Rashis that I'll quote you. First of all, the first Rashi is in the beginning of the parasha. Right? It says in the beginning of the parasha, Yaakov-Yosef. These are the chronicles of Yaakov-Yosef. And Rashi quotes the following. Rashi says, and I'm going to look for this Rashi. Ve'unar, it says, and he was a lad, he was a youth. It says Rashi, Shaya oseh ma'aseh na'arut. Mitaken bis'aro. He was like a young man who was always looking after his hair, how his hair looks. Memashmesh be'inav, touching his eyes, making sure that his eyes look nice. Kedei she'yeh nir'ah yafeh, in order to look handsome. This is the first Rashi.
Where does she got that?
When does Rashi? So, by the way, no, the Rashi is quoting. Rashi is quoting the Midrash. Bereshit Rabbah, the Midrash says that Yosef was always looking after his appearance. Right. Very good. Lotion, so his eyes, the whole thing. He wanted to look good. This is one Rashi. No, the Midrash says that, and then another Rashi later on, Ilan Vav. Ilan Vav, Rashi says,
that he was dressing nicely with his colorful.
Well, he was in the palace of the king of Egypt.
oh,
How could it?
Listen to this.
His colorful robe.
oh. So listen to this. When he's talking about, later on, it's talking about the encounter that he has with Potiphar's wife. The Torah describes him, Vayesheb-Yoseph Yefeh To'ah. He was pleasant in his appearance. Kevan Shera'a, says Rashi, Atzmo Moshe, since he saw himself as a Moshe, as someone who's a ruler. He's ruling, he's a big shot now. He's taking care of all the house of Potiphar. So then, he started to eat, to drink, to have a good time. Again, Rashi is quoting, it says the same lashon, the same language, making sure that his hair looks, like having a chuk, whatever it is, he has like a long, nice hair, and he's looking after his hair, how he's looking, he has to be handsome. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, אביך מתאבל ואתה מסלסל בצערך, אני מגלה לך את הדור. Therefore, because of that, Akadosh Baruch Hu tells him, your father is mourning the fact that he doesn't have you. And this is what you're doing. Because of that, you're going to go down from your greatness. And this is how the encounter takes place between him and Potiphar's wife. And he goes after that to prison. So it's a very complex personality. On the one hand, he's someone who's pleasant, whose people they get along with him, they want him, he's a great man. On the other hand, he's someone who's as righteous as we think he is. He's someone who is stuck with his brothers, someone who's looking after him, selfishness. However, after what we said about this complex, it's like a double personality that he has. Chazal, our rabbis, describe him as Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef, the righteous. And by the way, there are not too many people that Chazal, that our rabbis describe as tzaddikim.
Maybe not why they never aligned anything with tzaddik, not Yefet Torah. Maybe Yefet Torah is tzaddik.
Oh, so very good. You're looking at Yefet Torah, someone who's handsome in a spiritual way. Okay, it's a very nice way. It's a nice way of looking at it. But according to at least what Rashi says, it doesn't seem that in any way that he was a tzaddik. And again, Chachamim do not mince their words. I mean, if it's a tzaddik, they don't see it's tzaddik. And therefore, Yosef is described as a tzaddik. It's not what we see today. Today, and you look at the internet and you have this tzaddik, everyone is becoming a tzaddik. If Chazal describe him as a tzaddik, there's something there. And we have to understand why. Yaakov, by the way, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham, Avinu, Yitzchak, Avinu, Yaakov, Avinu, not tzaddikim. Doesn't say that they were tzaddikim. Moshe, Rabbi, not tzaddikim. The only one that Chazal described as a tzaddik is Yosef. The question is why?
No. What about no?
Okay, it's tzaddik Adorotav. Very good. Huh? You did? Very good. Very good.
I think
Which is strange,
Okay.
because Noah is described as a very flawed character as well.
Right. Very good.
I think
He's a very flawed character as well. So the question is, very good. People think about Noah as well.
after all this critique, then Yosef is just truthful. It is truthful. That's all his
Okay.
what do you call it? Mistake.
What? What is it?
Mistake. That he
That's all his mistake, that's all his...
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see. Okay. We'll try to elaborate.
That's the good. It's sincerity.
Okay. So let's.
Everything that came out from him was sincere.
Very good.
Even he was מסלסל בשערו,
Okay.
that was sincere.
Fine.
Arrogant, yes, מידה לא טובה,
Okay.
but yet come innocently.
Okay. Let's try to develop that. So here are the questions, and you can look at your papers. Given Yosef's contradictory record, why does he earn the title tzaddik? What do the rabbis perceive within Yosef's life that moves them to judge him positively? Okay, and we'll try to elaborate. We'll try to understand. We'll try to discuss it and to answer. Interestingly, from the time of Yosef till later on, when Bnei Israel are coming down to Mitzrayim, there is a period where God is silent. God spoke to Abraham, or he revealed himself to Abraham, to Yitzchak, to Yaakov. What about Yosef? There's nothing about Yosef. And therefore, Yosef is finding himself in a non-prophetic era. And he's thinking to himself, what is going on here? We assume that Yosef knew that his father Yaakov had the revelation of God, that his grandfather and great-grandfather as well. So Yosef is at loss. Here I am. I'm having these challenges and difficulties with my brothers. Where is God? Why is he not answering me? Why is he not revealing himself, telling me this is what you're supposed to do? I'll guide you. Nothing. So what does Yosef do? Yosef's reaction is, Yosef brings God into the picture. Into the picture. He brings him into his life. Okay, and we'll see, we'll look at the psukim. There's a few psukim that are quoted in the sheets of paper, where we see that Yosef is active. He understands that God is hidden. And therefore, that doesn't mean that God is not is not present. He is present. And therefore, Yosef understands that I will be the one who is going to have to bring him into my life. And that's what he does. First of all, faced by the seductive demands of Potiphar's wife, let's see, Bereshit 39, 8 and 9. So we'll look at the Chumash. Perek Lamed. So it's on page 216. Actually, sorry, 214. Where Potiphar, it's on page 214, it's Pasuk Tet and Chet and Tet. 8 and 9. Okay? So Potiphar's wife is trying to seduce him. What does it say in the Torah? Vayimael. He refuses. Vayomer el eshet adonav. And he says to his master's wife, Potiphar's wife, Hen adoni lo yada iti ma babayit. V'chol asher yesh lo natan biyadi. My master doesn't know what is going on in the house. Everything that he has, biyadi is in my hand. Enenu gadol babayit hazeh mimeni. There's no one who's greater than me in this house. V'lo chasach mimeni me'uma. And anything that I want to have, he didn't let whatever I want to have, right? Right? Ki'im otach. The only thing is you, which means anything else I could have. You're his wife.
It's a big trust.
Ba'asherat ishto. Why? Because you're your wife. Ve'ech eseh hara hagdola hazot. And how am I going to commit such a great sin? V'chatati. And I'm going to sin to who? Not to your husband. Elohim, to God. So Yosef understands, God is here. God is watching me. He didn't reveal himself, fine. But the fact is, he is watching and he is present. And it has nothing to do with your husband, it has to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's watching. So this is the first example.
Another thing, it shows a good character by respecting the master trust.
There's no doubt. But he could have said, you know what?
He could.
I'm afraid of your husband. No, he doesn't say I'm afraid of God. I'm in awe of God. God is here.
But this is one thing. Also,
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And he says that. Very, very good. Excellent. So we have this and that. Okay?
Also, he's going in the direction of Abraham,
Which is?
which Abraham always talked about Hashem and praise Hashem, and here it's the same. He's doing also.
Very good. But there's a big difference. By the case of Abraham, God reveals himself.
Yeah.
But here he doesn't.
No, but
So he follows the path of his great-grandfather, and so on and so forth. Very good. Now, another case, another example is in prison, confronted by the butler and the baker. Let's look at the Psukim a little bit later on. Perek Mem, Pasuk Chet. It's chapter 40, verse 8, which is on 218. Okay. So let's see.
the dream.
Yes. So look at this. Vayumeru Rav Charuk Chalamnu Upoter Eloto. So they tell them, they have the butler and the baker, both of them have dreams, they don't have interpretation for the dreams, so they turn to him. Vayomer Aleim Yosef. So Yosef says to them, Halo Lelokim Pitrunim. Says, God, not me. God is the one who could give you an answer, an interpretation to your dream. So again, here's a second example where we see that Yosef is including God in his life. He doesn't, he's humble, exactly. He doesn't take any credit. He doesn't take any credit.
Well, being arrogant about his handsome and looking good and looking after himself, and then In this place, you describe it in a contradictory way to that.
Right,
Really.
right. So again, it's a contradiction in his personality, you're right.
Okay.
But I think that there is more than, we'll explain in a minute, yeah.
On top of that, he says, "Sapur li," and that's, it's Sapur na li. So even though the interpretations are for God,
Yes,
still tell me.
right.
So he still gets involved even though it's not supposed to be.
Oh, but he gets involved, but it says Saprunali. Tell it to me. And God is the one who is going to give me
Through me.
Exactly.
Right.
the interpretation. Okay? So I think it makes sense, Moshe, what you're saying. I think what happens is Yosef eventually matures. And when he matures, he realizes, you know what, there's a God. And it's not about me anymore. It's not my selfishness or how I look or my appearance and so on and so forth. There's more than that. There's a God. And this happens through the experience that Yosef has in his life. The fact that he's taken down to Mitzrayim. Maybe there's some Farshim that actually say that this was the reason why Yosef had to go down to Mitzrayim in order to realize that he has to involve God in his life. And that is why God does not reveal himself in order for Yosef to understand, okay, God is not revealing himself, but he's still here, and therefore I have to involve him.
Also to get mature. When he was what age he went down to Egypt?
Right, exactly.
He's
Oh,
just a young man.
right.
This time would take something years to understand it.
Very good, very good. Number 3, abruptly pulled from the prison for a sudden audience with Paro. So this is 41:15, Perek, Mem Aleph, next week's parasha. Pasuk Tet Vav on page 224, and it's verse 15. So it says, they take him abruptly out of prison. Vayavo el Paro, he comes to Paro. And then, Vayomer Paro el Yosef, חלום חלמתי ופותרן אותו, ואני שמעתי עליך לאמור תשמע חלום תפתור אותו. Yosef, Paro tells him, I have a dream, because I had a dream, and I heard that you are someone who could interpret dreams, and therefore I want you to give me a solution, an answer to my dream. What does Yosef answer him? What does he tell him? ויען יוסף את פרעה לאמור בלעדיי. Elohim יענה את שלום פרעה. No, בלעדיי is not me. It is God. God is the one who is going to give you an interpretation to your dream. Now imagine that for a minute. But Yosef just is abruptly coming out of prison. He's coming in front of the most powerful dictator in the world, king in the world.
And I think he is a king. He is a god.
Right, he's thinking that he's a god, even born a god, very good. And what does he say? It's not you, not me. But there's a God, man, because he's the one who's going to interpret your dream. In a sense, it's a chutzpah. But he understands and he realizes that he has to stand up for whatever he knows is right. And what is right? The fact that there is a God, and God is the one who is in control. God is in the picture, even though God is not revealing himself. And number 4, confronting his brothers for the first time after revealing himself. This is in Perek Mem He, Pasuk He, so 45, chapter 45, and it's in 2 weeks from now, Parashat Vayigash, where it says, as he reveals himself, let's look at the Pasuk, on page 252, 252. Yeah. Now look at what it says in Pasuk. Pasuk He, verse 5. Ve'ata, when he reveals himself, he says, Ve'ata al te'atzevu, ve'al ichar be'enechem. Says, don't be upset, don't be sad. Ki mechartem oti, that you sold me henna. You sold me to this country, to this place. Ki le'michya shelachani elokim lifnechem. Because God is the one who sent me here in order for you to have sustenance. So again, and Yosef is in which position now? He's the viceroy, he's the second in command of the most powerful country in the world at that time. But we see his humility. Even though he's in such a powerful position, ain't him. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's God. So because of that, because of all this, he understands that through his life, and the fact that he had a life that was full, that was painful life. But who was behind everything? Who is the one who was guiding him through all that without revealing himself? It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it was God. It's a level of maturity that Yosef is getting through all these harsh experiences that he has. And he realizes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and only Levado. It's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is the one who I have to trust, because he is the one who took me down to Egypt. He is the one who put me in prison. He is the one who took me out of prison. He is the one who made me, who appointed me to become the viceroy. It's not Paro. Paro is only a clear vessel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in order for me to be in this position.
He understood there's the master plan.
Exactly.
Otherwise, he would say God.
Very good. Excellent. And by the way, when Yosef loses his faith for a moment, we find it when he tells the butler that he's going to live, and he tells him, when you go in front of Paro, remember me and mention me. Rashi says, on the spot, he says because of that, he says two words, remember and mention. He got 2 more years in prison. God was knocking on his door telling him, hey, till now you remembered me, now you forget me for a moment. Tell him to remind the Paro, but you know what, for these two words, you're going to stay 2 more years. It's a harsh thing. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants Yosef to realize that I'm here, and I'm in good shape. I'm not revealing myself, but I'm definitely here. Wow.
I think this is one clear case of how important Jewish education is.
Okay.
Because if you see, he was studying, he was the closest to Yaakov. So what does it mean? That he was getting the Torah of Yaakov. So he was studying with him while his brothers were appointing and working and doing all these things. And if I understand correctly, the last portion of the Torah that they studied was Halot.
Yes. Yes.
And that is the message that he sends him when they're going back for him.
Yes.
So all his life, since he was a teenager, he dwelled with that Torah.
Yes.
That was his portion, I guess.
Yes.
And that learning of the Torah saved his life.
Very good. Very good. So the education that he got saved his life. It's something that connected him, kept him alive, connected him to his roots, to his father, and to God. Right? So that's it. Very good. Excellent. Excellent point. So, because of that, Chazal, our rabbis, consider Yosef a tzaddik, because he is the first out of all our ancestors who maintains faith living in a non-prophetic era. And that is why he is named a tzaddik. A tzaddik is someone who will find God when God cannot be found, in a sense. To be a tzaddik when God is revealing himself to you, you know that God exists. He revealed himself to you. He spoke with you last night. You saw him in a revelation, in a dream, in a vision. But to believe in God, and more than that, to be passionate about it, as you're standing in front of the most powerful man in the world and telling him it's not you, it's not me, it's God, this is tzidkut, this is righteousness. And then That is why Yosef is called tzaddik.
Why then not all of the Rabbanim that have since then to all the way to here that have placed absolute confidence in Hashem called tzaddikim?
They are tzaddik. They are tzaddik.
Doesn't that though devaluate the value of the word itself?
No, not at all, because I think Yosef is the one who reveals to us what a tzaddik is all about. A tzaddik is someone, again, who is going to find God in a non-prophetic era, where God is concealing himself, he's hiding himself. And I'm still looking and I'm finding God. This is tzidkut. And therefore all the rabbis, the rabbanim, the chachamim, who came after and did the same as Yosef, but he is the one, in a sense, who opened the door for us, who paved this path of what a tzaddik is all about, or what tzadkanit is all about.
Since Yosef, how many times has Hashem revealed himself?
Since Yosef, okay, so we have after that, after Yosef.
How many times? A lot.
Yeah, well, the fact is, when Bnei Israel are going down to Mitzrayim,
Absolutely, it's huge, but I'm just saying there's a lot of times.
there's the Nevi'im also,
Absolutely.
right? And we'll talk about it in a
I'm just
minute.
curious that's my question is
Yeah.
more to the point is why is it now and not after?
Oh.
We're not in this day and age and since however long we have
Yeah.
had Hashem revealed himself. So you think it's sort of he would be the path to preparing us for that?
Who Yosef is it?
Yes, whereas Hashem revealed himself many times afterwards.
Oh.
So I don't know.
So I think
Why now? Why Dafka?
Dafka there and not at the end of the
Yeah.
whole
Okay.
prophetic period.
Okay, so I think that it's an on and off situation where sometimes God reveals himself and then he conceals himself and then he reveals himself and then he conceals himself. So you have Yosef. God doesn't reveal himself. They go down to Mitzrayim, yes.
Huge.
Then huge.
Yeah.
Then the Nevuah, the prophets. But then after the destruction of the first temple, Gemara says, after the destruction of the first temple, the Nevuah was concealed. That's it. There's no more prophecy. And this is the era that we live in. So in a sense, Yosef, because it says, Ma'aseh avot siman labanim, that whatever our ancestors experienced and went through is something that we will experience as well. And therefore we have to learn from their footsteps. And that is what the Sefer Bereshit is all about. Because what happened in Sefer Bereshit is what is going to happen to the Jewish people in their history. And we see that. We can find everything that happened to Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef. This is what happened to us as well. So Yosef is the one who is teaching us, who is revealing to us that there will be a time after the destruction of the first temple where God is going to be, as we call it, Vayesheb-Yoseph, is going to hide his face. And at that time, it's going to be up to you, up to us, to find God, as Yosef did. Okay.
That's what happened to people because it's that
Oh.
they came to her and said, asked her to do something about the Jewish people. If you want, a month for you, right? And we're going to find salvation, stop.
Very good. Excellent. So we're
He
going
was the God,
Excellent. So we're going to speak about Mordechai actually. We'll spend a few minutes speaking about Mordechai and we'll see how Mordechai and Yosef actually are very similar. Okay? So through history we find God's revelation and God's concealment, depending on the time. And interestingly, there's a lot of similarities between Yosef and Mordechai later on in Megillat Esther. Okay? First of all, Yosef's brother is Binyamin. Right? Binyamin, Mordechai was descendant of whom? Ishemini from Binyamin. Interesting. Shevet Binyamin. Interesting. But more than that, furthermore, we find that Yosef is taken by, when he becomes the viceroy of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. So Paro takes him in his royal carriage, a wagon, and he takes him all over the place in order for people to see, this is the viceroy, this is Yosef. Mordechai as well. Mordechai, when he reveals to Ahashverosh that someone was plotting to murder him, what does he do? He tells it to Haman, go and take Mordechai on my horse and take him all over the place. Another interesting similar situation between Mordechai and Yosef is that Paro gives Yosef his tabat, his seal, and Mordechai, also Ahashverosh, towards the end of the Megillah, he tells them, you know what, because Mordechai, Esther reveals herself, and they tell him this is what's going to happen to the Jewish people because of Haman, and he tells Mordechai, take my seal, and write the letter that you want to write, and do whatever you want, and here is my Chatamet. So it's similar. And what's similar also about these two personalities? In the time of Yosef, there is Hester Parim, God is concealing himself. And in the time of Mordechai and Esther, in the Megillah, in the whole Megillah, you will not find the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu even once. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not mentioned at all. The same tribe. Very good, because Binyamin, so the idea is, and by the way, just to add on, the Gemara in Masechet Megillah that deals with the laws of Megillah, Megillat Esther, says an interesting question, asks an interesting question. Esther min ha-Torah minai. Where do we find Esther in the Torah? Very good, the Gemara answers. It says in the Pasuk, Aster, Astir Panai, Vayomahu. Astir has the same letters as Esther. I'm going to hide my face, I'm going to conceal myself by Yomahu at that time. And therefore the Gemara proves from that at the time of Mordechai and Esther, Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu was there, he was present. But he was in the era, in the time of non-revelation. And Yosef is the same thing. And that is why Yosef is called a tzaddik. And Mordechai as well is called a tzaddik. Why? Because they find God in the most challenging, difficult situation where God is not, seems to be, not there. And therefore, it's important for us to remember that since we are finding ourselves in a non-prophetic era, we are challenged to find God. The challenge that we have is to see God, to feel God, to connect with God, to speak to God, even though God is in an era, in a moment that He is not revealing Himself. And Yosef is the example for, as a beacon across generations, in the same way that he went through all these difficulties and challenges in his life. And he realized through that God is the one who's there, He's knocking on his door. It's up to us to do the same. And I'll share with you what it says in Shir HaShirim. Shir HaShirim, as you know, the Gemara speaks about Shir HaShirim that was written by Shlomo HaMelech. At the beginning, the Gemara, the Chazal, the rabbis wanted to abolish this book because they thought, it's what is written there? It's a love story between husband and wife, between men and woman. But then they realized that actually Shir HaShirim is Kodesh Kadashim, is the Holy of Holies. Why? Because it's talking about Knesset Israel, about Am Israel and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the love story between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how we cannot separate ourselves from Hashem. So interestingly, it says in one of the psukim there that God, it's talking about God, who's coming to Am Yisrael. He's coming to Am Yisrael and he says, Kumi, wake up, Ahoti, Rayati, Yonati, Tamati, my beloved one. He's knocking on the door. And what is the reaction of Am Yisrael? Am Yisrael says, I'm already in my bed. I already washed myself, bathed myself, and I'm not going to get out. In a sense, it's like a king who's saying to one of his sons or daughters who lives across the globe, I'm going to come visit you. And the day that the king comes, he thinks there's going to be a royal treatment. After all, he's coming to visit his beloved child. And as he gets to that city, that country, Gurnish Bitmonish, there's nothing. And the king says, maybe they're sick, maybe whatever. He goes to the door, knocks on the door. Who is there? It's your Abba. Oh, Abba, I'm in bed. I'll come soon. Yeah, but waits a little bit. The king waits. No one comes. And he leaves. And then next morning, when the child wakes up, oh, my Abba was here. I fell asleep. He opens the door. The father's not there. He's talking about us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fine, he's not revealing himself. But he's knocking on our doors. I have no doubt that each one of us has messages from God. But we have to be a kli, a vessel that is not broken in order to be able to get the bracha or the message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If the kli, which is our neshama, our goof, our body that God gave us, is broken, it's a kli shavu, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as much as he's going to knock, you're not going to be able to understand that he is knocking, that he is wanting to converse with us. And therefore Yosef is the one, Yosef HaTzadik is the one who is telling us that it is up to each one of us to really tune ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to God. Understanding that God is here. That God wants to converse with us, wants to communicate with us, wants to have a relationship with us. However, it is up to us, as Yosef did, to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our lives. To be the ones who are going to be patuach, who are going to be open, and realize that here is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to open the door for him. And I'll share with you a little anecdote that happened to me a year ago. I was taking some voice lessons from someone, a Jew, who's very spiritual. Not so connected, but extremely spiritual. And this is what he told me. Went to him for one session. We have these exercises, you close your eyes, and you breathe in, and you breathe out, and whatever it is, and it tells you, you're spiritual, and you have 4 letters in the name of Hashem, the Yud-Ke when you breathe out, and you Vav-Ke when you breathe in, and the whole thing. And then, he tells me, remember, that when you are standing on the bima, on the teva, and you are about to open your mouth, representing your congregation, remember that you are a vessel that God created. And everything that is going to come out of your mouth is from God. So close your eyes for a moment. Before you open your mouth, before anything comes out of your mouth, And have in your mind, and speak to God in your mind. Tell him, God, I'm here in front of you. I'm your vessel. Now it's up to you. Whatever you want is going to come out. And then he sent me this email with this message, and he told me, have the email next to you as you are about to start chanting or opening your mouth or and this is, it was a good message for me. Very good. We say it every day. You say the Amidah. Hashem Sefatay Tiftach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you the one who's going to open my mouth.
We have to be careful. Like I said, what I'm saying is not nonsense. Yeah, let's say the text 23, we have to be careful there.
Right. So,
I'm not responsible for what I say.
Right. But
You have to believe it.
Yeah.
But the fact is that we have to remember that, and that reminds me, by the way, of part of our literature that we say on the high holidays, where the Shaliach Tzibur says, "Lefanecha, in front of you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ani nechshav, I'm considering myself ketola'at ketana ba'adama, like a little worm in the earth." So this is the way that we have to approach God, with humility. And I think that if we do it with humility and we really show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He is the one who's in charge, I have no doubt that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see that this is a good vessel. And God is going to, dramatically, is going to knock on our doors. And we will be able, through this humility that we're going to create, because that's what Yosef did, by the way. He became humble. After all this era where he's thinking about himself, there's a new era in his life, which is the era of humility, the era of understanding that God is here. Through that, if we follow this example, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have no other choice but to open himself, reveal himself to us personally, and through that, we will be able to have this revelation of God in a concealed way, but certainly a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be upon all of us. And by the way, each one of us could find it. I find it sometimes in a very, very in things that people think that it's maybe silly, right? But there are moments that you are somewhere and something happens and you realize that this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is God. This is what God wants from you. Or you're praying for something that seems to be, and some people will say, some people ask me, they say, is God looking into every little detail that is going on? The answer is yes. This is what the divine presence is all about. This is what divine providence is all about. God is looking and watching each little thing that we do. The Gemara even says that when we put our hand in our pocket, how much money do we have in our pocket? Something that God is the one who already knows, who already decides. And that's why, by the way, that's customary by some never to really take out all their money from their pocket, because maybe there's a bracha there. God is blessing our pocket with a lot of money, and therefore it's better not to know how much money I have in my pocket. Some people do that. But the fact is, I think the message is clear. The message is, it's up to us to open up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be this kli malei bracha, this vessel that is full of blessing as Yosef was, and through that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reveal himself. Ezrat Hashem, through that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to eventually, V'haya Hashem le'melech al kol ha'aretz, it's going to be a time that God is going to come back to the time of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the Israel were in Mitzrayim, where it is going to be a great revelation at that time. V'haya Hashem le'melech al kol ha'aretz, God is going to be the one, Hashem is going to be the one who's going to be king all over the earth, and Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, his name will be Ezrat Hashem. Thank you very much. ברוכים תהיו. בסדר? ותודה רבה לך יעקב. לילה טוב. ביי.
Rabbi, you say that someone asked if Hashem taking care of all of us.
Yes.
I would say, לא ינום ולא ישן.
שומר ישראל. נכון. But some say,
li 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 li